So how do you manage and keep your thyroid levels optimal? Like, what are things that someone can do or you can do to do that?
So kind of two-part answer, because at the end of the day, no medication or prescription is going to be a magic pill. We have to address root cause. And so if we're not sleeping at night, if we're eating fast food all the time, we're not eating enough food, we're doing all these things where it's like our nutrition, our lifestyle, our exercise habits need a little love. We got to go both ways. It's like that prescription or medication is only going to help you if you're also helping yourself in the other departments.
Hmm.
And so that's where, again, can you hire a good nutrition coach to really audit your life and see where's there room for improvement? Where are there things that, it's like you might be doing something and not even realizing how it's impacting you. Like maybe you're somebody that you love having a glass of wine every night and you don't realize, oh, well, shoot, that can be impacting my hormones. That could be, impacting all these things, right? So it's like that gets back to like, if you've never hired a nutrition coach, I'm going to still say that is one of the most valuable things you can
Yeah.
invest in. I mean, you used to be my client. I had several nutrition coaches over the years. So I think that's really important. But
Yeah.
gonna grab a sip of water. We're doing a lot of talking shit, man.
Well, I think the most thing that I've seen with people who have hypothyroid and like digging back into their history, there's a lot of things in common. There's like chronic dieting. There's poor diet. So like a diet that's high in processed foods, not a lot of nutrients in their diet. And
I'm
then
gonna just keep
also,
nodding. I'm gonna like give myself a headache,
like,
but I'm just keep
like,
doing this.
and then lots of stress. So whether it's emotional or physical stress, like either, just a lot of like emotional, mental life stress, but also to like people who are like chronically doing too much stuff, like exercising too much, and then also not eating and taking care of themselves and sleeping. So it's like just a recipe for your body saying, we're done with this. And then
chronic
in this
under
particular,
recovery, man,
yeah,
is the killer.
yeah. And that's a lot of the common denominators I see with people when I dive into their history. Like, why do they have like Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism? Sometimes, yeah, it's genetic, yes, but with a lot of cases, I do see that.
I literally was just like one of those little like bobbles that you see when you go eat sushi. I'm just over here like bobbing. No, you smashed that out of the park. There is, there's a lot of things where it's like it can be genetic. If somebody in your family has it, the likelihood of you also having it pretty high there. But for the most part, it's like understanding that again, the things we do, the choices we make in terms of what foods we eat, how much we eat. Are we getting nutrient deficiencies, like you said, because we're not eating tons of fruits and vegetables, or we're not getting enough fiber, we're not getting enough water, we're not getting enough sleep, we're living in that world of, under recovery and just beating our body down. Those are all things that basically hedge us towards, oh, okay, well, if body is in survival mode, well, we know that sex hormones start to flip off. Same thing, it's like your thyroid is basically just like the central commander that's like, okay, the ship is going down. What do I do to keep this thing afloat, right? And so it starts down-regulating everything. It starts down-regulating our metabolism. So it's cool because with thyroid stuff, there is so much stuff that you personally can do and efforts you can make in nutrition, lifestyle, stress, sleep, all those things that make a big impact. So to get back to your original question, we have to address root cause in addition to I've talked about this on so many podcasts, but like people often feel a kind of way about taking a medication or a prescription, right? It's like, oh, I feel bad because I'm not, it's like I'm not doing enough.
Not doing it the natural way.
Correct. And it's like,
Yeah.
I fell into that camp. I've talked about that on quite a few podcasts. Like I fell into that camp where it was like I spiraled and I felt bad because I couldn't be natural. And it's like, listen, it was actually Dr. Becky Campbell is the one who has quoted this, but it's like, listen, if you need thyroid meds, not taking them when you need them is arguably more damaging than actually taking them. Like the symptoms and side effects are so small. Like the risk of you having problems there is so so small. And so it's like truly like if you're doing all the right things and you still need medication to bring you up to normal, you deserve to feel good. Like that's the big take home is it's like, fuck, I want to say fuck your feelings, but actually I'm going to say like, fuck your feelings. It's like, you deserve to feel good. So why don't you think you deserve to feel your absolute best? You know, it's like if quite literally taking a little pill every day suddenly is the difference between, hey, I have energy and I'm not cold all the time and I actually poop on the daily and I feel good during my workouts. I show up as my best like parent. I show up as my best like, boss or, employee, whatever it is. It's like, if quite literally that small action is what could get you from A to B, why in the world wouldn't you want that for yourself?
Yeah.
I just got, I'm like sweating a little. I just got really heated, but it's again, I see that so often and I've been in both positions. And I also know how silly I felt when it was like, for me, it was when I was like 29 years old. I was like, oh, I'm just going to do everything natural. Well, then I had this dumpster fire shit show that was so far, it's like I dug myself into this grave. So it was even harder to just get back out on the other side of it. But I did. I felt so dumb and I felt so silly because I started taking medication and like instantly went from like a negative 20 to like, oh, I feel like a person, like I'm okay. So truly, it's like if you are somebody that you're feeling bad about taking a prescription, like let yourself feel good. Give yourself permission to experience that. Because you might. So there's basically there's a couple different drugs. And so the biggest thing to understand is that every doctor is going to have a different preference. Understand that you might not get it a home run. I think that my experience with blood thinners is a perfect analogy that I would not wish on anybody, but it's like, I literally took the two most popular blood thinners and I clotted on both of them and they were not a good fit for me. It took 2 different blood clots before we finally tried. It was the 3rd blood thinner medication that then it was like, okay, we got this under wraps. Sometimes it be like that. And you just, your body is unique and you might not hit it on the first go. With thyroid stuff, again, it's a slow course to figure out what dose do I need to be on? And then also, am I on the right drug for me? So basically there's 2 different types. You can be on a man-made or a synthetic one. So this would be like your Synthroid, which is what a lot of people are on. It's basically just all T4 medication. I got stuff in my mouth. Look at me over here. Hot mess. You can also take desiccated. So basically that comes from little piggies, or I don't know if it comes from other animals, but I know for sure desiccated means that it comes typically from pigs. But if you go the desiccated route that comes from animals, it typically contains a little bit of T4 and a little bit of T3. So that would be your Armour thyroid, your Nature thyroid. There's MP thyroid, WP thyroid. The big take home here is, again, it's like ultimately whatever your doctor loves prescribing is probably what you're going to roll with. And you might end up with a combination. You can also actually just take T3. It's a drug called Cytomel, and it's another synthetic one. But for me personally, I took Synthroid for years and years, and I just never had luck with it. Like it was always this big hurdle. It's like we would like get it, and then the next time I'd draw labs, like things would be poo-poo again. And so we were always just like, we could never meet in the middle. And so it was actually when I started working with Sean, which would have been maybe around like 2018, 2019. That was the first time I went desiccated. I was taking Armour thyroid. So again, T4 and T3. And so it was like we started getting things moving in the right direction, but my free T3 was still low. And so I actually do a combo of both. So I do Cytomel, which is the T3, and I also do the Armour thyroid. But again, it's like this is where you have to work closely with your doctor. And so again, if you have a doctor that like literally gets out pen and paper, is like, here's a prescription. See you in 6 months.
In 6 months.
No. Like, again, this is where you need to advocate for yourself. You need to get uncomfortable and be like, hey, actually, how about I see you in like 2 to 3 months? Because your goal, if you're newly on prescription, and it's like, you want to get to feeling good as fast as you possibly can. But again, it does take time for this stuff to roll in. So I'm a big advocate. I like to check my labs every 2 to 3 months, whether or not I feel good. And the reason for that is we actually want labs of what, if you feel like A+, if you're like, yo, I'm 100%, well, we want to know what those labs look like so that when we're not there, we know where we could be. And I think that's
great. That's great advice.
That's a big thing people miss, though, is it's like people only go get labs when they feel good. And it's like, well, bro, if you're already running hypo, you're already down here. And now we're on the reactive side of stuff. And we always want to be on the proactive. Like we want to see stuff going downhill so that we can try to adjust course. We can stop and pause and be like, yo, okay, what am I doing? And it might just be as simple, right? It's like, yo, I've been going out with the girls more often. I've been drinking a little more, or my sleep's been sucky. Maybe I started a new training program. I've been going really hard. We want to be able to, stop and kind of analyze and be like, okay, when my labs were really good, what did my habits and what did my lifestyle, what did that look like? What does it look like now when my labs aren't so great? And then can we meet in the middle, right?
I love data. You can see, because you can see that trending over time. Like if your stuff's going, like if you were, like you said, you would like to operate like your T3 is in like the threes or something, and you start see it trickling down, then it's kind of red flag to say, hey, like, what am I doing? Do I need to adjust my medication? Do I need to adjust my lifestyle?
And I would just say this too. It's like, even if you're not somebody that maybe you don't love data. Maybe you're like, yo, I don't have an Apple Watch. I don't have a Whoop. I don't have an Oura Ring. I don't like all the data. At the end of the day, you need to know and understand your illness, or you need to know and understand whatever it is that you might be dealing with. Because again, it's like that whole education equals empowerment equals I can have a really good conversation with my doctor. It's like for me personally, I quite literally can look at my labs and I already know what my doctor is going to say, or I already know the medication suggestions, changes that my doctor is going to make before we even get together and meet. It's like, you don't have to necessarily be on that level, but almost you kind of should be, right? Like that would be a great goal. It's like, hey, I understand the basics. I understand the things that influence my condition. Because again, it's like your doctor's only going to have a short amount of time with you. So when you get in, you want to be able to go hit some cannonballs and be able to have a good, again, back and forth discussion, rather than for a lot of people, it's just like, oh, okay, I have this thing. Well, cool. I'm going to go live my lifestyle I've been living. And if nothing changes, right? Like that's
cool. That's also, it is good to have somebody like a coach who understand some of this stuff and can guide on, how to have these conversations with your doctor, with your physician, for sure.
Yeah, 100. And to kind of tack on to you, it's like I mentioned, I love seeing people, if you're like, hey, I take thyroid medication, I love to see you checking that stuff every 2 to 3 months. I wish it could be more common practice to see people pull a full hormone panel once a year or every 6 months. Like the problem is, depending again on your insurance and this and that, it's like it can be really expensive. But it's like, if you're going to invest in one thing, man, invest in your health, right? It's like, again, I will say, if you're doing all the right things and you feel like you're spinning the wheels in the sand, if you have the ability to start opening up your pocketbook and be like, yo, let's check under the hood, let's get to digging. I'm such a big advocate for that, because again, it's like, there's just some stuff where it's, if I had a client and they came back, they popped back for thyroid stuff, it's like, cool. We know exactly what changes we can start making.
What we
it's
need
like,
to do.
We got a checklist of, okay, where are you smashing? Where are we, falling short? And then it quickly becomes something, that we can remedy and resolve, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. So, I wanted to ask too, a lot of people with hypothyroid, a lot of people want to lose weight. They want to lose body fat, and it's difficult because of the condition. So if a person has hypothyroid, like, how can they lose weight? What considerations do they need to make when they're dieting?
I'm going to go back. Y'all know I love the boys from Mind Pump Media, but truly this quote is so good of chase health first and then aesthetics can follow. I'm such a big advocate for that. And so the way I used to kind of explain this to clients is like, if your thyroid levels are already not looking so hot, you're kind of the equivalent of that crusty old tube of toothpaste where you're like, shit, man, I need to go to Target. I got to get a new tube. And every single day you're like squeezing that puppy trying to get the last ounce. If your
this is college for me.
This is still me, let's be honest. If your thyroid levels aren't looking so hot, your metabolism is probably already downregulated. And we're probably already operating at a not so great thing. And so it's not that you can't, again, if you drop calories low enough, you're going to see weight loss. You're going to see, those changes.
doable.
But is it, it's like, how miserable is that going to be? And is that really, the question I would ask is, are we not just digging ourselves a grave that's even harder to get out of at a future date?
Yeah.
It's like, we have to recognize like, hey, my health isn't doing so hot. So right now maybe we should consider pressing pause on those aesthetic goals. Can we get all the health stuff in order? Ironically, I'll feel better in the process, which is great. So yeah, I might still be uncomfortable with my body, but we are seeing positive changes and life-changing, changes in other ways. And then, again, it's almost like this goal that's like, we have it here out in the future and we're still watching it being like, okay, I want to get back to you, but we got some business to take care of first. I think that's so huge. So it's like, I'm always a big advocate for, again, if I'm working with somebody, I want to explain and I want to empower them. Ultimately, if somebody says, yeah, like, fuck that, I'm going to diet. Who am I? Right? It's like, all I can do is be kind of the parental figure that's wiser and can share, hey, here's your options. Here's the option I would love to see you pick. But ultimately, if you go down that road, might be the wild, wild west. These might be the repercussions or the things you deal with. Well, cool. You can still pick that option. And that's not my job to tell you what to do, but it is my job to like lay out your options, tell you your cards and let you ride. Right. And so same thing, it's like, I'm a big advocate of giving analogies, giving explanations like that. But we want to be a fresh, juicy tube of toothpaste, right? Like we want to be, hey, listen, my thyroid levels are good. My hormone levels in terms of like estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, we're ovulating every month. Like sex drive is pretty, I'm just going to say pretty all right. Like it doesn't even have to be like amazing. But, it's like you're not dealing with really bad digestion issues. You're not dealing with like fatigue and feeling tired and feeling super sleepy. It's like, go spend time like eating food and training and living life. Get your shit dialed in, if you will. And then maybe that's the better time, because it's like the way I always just think about it is, again, it's like, I want to get from A to B as quickly as possible. I don't want
the least painful way as possible.
Like I don't want wheels spinning. Like it doesn't have to be miserable, but a lot of people only know the way of like, it has to be miserable. So I'm just such a big advocate of, again, like, can we explain to people the different options and try be team juicy tube of toothpaste. Go spend some time, get those thyroid levels right, get them up, again, work with your doctor to figure out the levels. Because the thing is, if you are like, okay, I want to get my thyroid levels better, but you're over here under eating, guess what? Hormones want food. Hormones need food. Hormones need fats. Hormones need calories to make and do the things. So you could go on medication. You could go on prescription. You could, like, your doctor could keep writing that number bigger and bigger and bigger. But if you're over here on the island of, I'm not eating food, I ain't doing the most in the eating department, you're probably going to be really tough to see those levels go up, because you're not giving your body the inputs it needs to actually do the thing. Like, I don't know of an analogy, but it's like, that would be like trying to enter a horse race and you've got your saddle and you've got all the things, but you don't have the horse to get on. Like you got to have that guy.
Yeah. So like what kinds of, if we're talking about dieting for fat loss, if you have hypothyroidism, like, are there any kinds of like, hey, we don't want to go too low on calories or want to diet too long? Do you have any like recommendations or suggestions about how to approach dieting if you have hypothyroid?
I'm laughing because I'm thinking of all of like the Lane Norton and what's the other doctor? Dr. Nadolsky. I feel like
Nadolsky's great. Yeah.
I feel like they make memes about this.
He actually has hypothyroid.
Oh, does he?
Yes. Yeah, he does. Yeah, actually. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like both of them will put out memes from time to time, because it's like people assume that if you have, it's basically like, this is like the thought process is like, I have hypothyroidism, therefore I can't lose weight or I can't look good. And that's why I love sharing, like, guys, I have hypothyroidism. Like, I have to work incredibly hard to look how I look. And I have to like double down and be really tight about my nutrition, fitness, and lifestyle and all that stuff. Like, I don't get to fuck around and have as much fun as other people do in terms of like how often I might drink or how often I'm doing XYZ, right? It's like, I have to keep those things super tight, but it's like, listen, if I can do it, you can do it too. Like it took me a while to realize the inputs I need to look the way I want to look and stuff like that. But the idea is that if we are taking meds and we get our thyroid levels back up to, the normal person, well, you're back on the playing field. Like y'all are on the same soccer team here of, again, yeah, you might have to work a little bit harder. You might not get as much wiggle room. But I think that would just be my biggest tip is like, hey, some people draw the short end of the stick. And like some people, everybody has that person at the gym that it's like, I go drinking all the time. I never sleep. I'm partying. I
Fuck
eat
those people.
Yeah, like I eat Whataburger, McDonald's, and I look great. I don't track my macros. And, meanwhile, everybody's like, fuck this guy, right? Everybody knows that person, and that's like great genetics, right? But just understanding that, that person lucked out and that's their scenario. I'm not that person. I have to have my stuff really dialed in. I think that's also incredibly empowering because, again, from an early age, I quickly realized, I just don't get as much wiggle room as a normal person. I have to work harder. And to be honest, I love that. I love knowing that. And that motivates me because, hey, again, I just don't get as much wiggle room. So that would be my biggest tip and kind of like mindset tweak is if you're in that position of like, woe is me, I have this condition, you're just not going to have great success with all of this stuff. It's like truly dial in your shit, keep it tight.
But it doesn't make it impossible having hypothyroid. No. Yeah.
But like I said, it's like if your levels are still garbage, you got to go double down and figure out how to get those levels back in a better place. But the big like habits and the big like lifestyle things that you want to start, we've kind of touched on these here and there, but it's like, the biggest one is, again, you got to be eating the food. If we're not eating the food, if we're not at our maintenance calories, if we're eating chronically underneath what we're expending when we're living and loving life, like you got to go eat food. You got to be not even like you don't have to be well fed. Like you don't need to be overfed, but you just need to be fed and you need to be recovering from your inputs of exercise and stuff like that. You need to be getting enough protein, eating lots of fruits and vegetables. Again, we're like back to like the basic not sexy habits, right? Like that's the kicker with thyroid
usually
stuff.
Goes back
like
to that.
Everybody's trying to sell the sexy and we're back to the basic D, habits. But are we getting enough fiber? Are we getting lots of water per day? Supplementing where we might be falling short on stuff. So again, with vitamin D specifically, definitely you want to check labs because if you take too much, you're not going to be feeling so hot. But could we be supplementing the very, very basics of like zinc, magnesium, vitamin D?
Selenium is also too, like for thyroid, selenium. Yeah.
And you can also like, there's tons of different vitamins and minerals that play in. So it's like even stuff like iodine, stuff like vitamin A. So again, it's like focus on your food. Can we be eating tons of colorful stuff? Can we be getting a lot of protein? Can we be getting a protein, carb, fat? At majority of our meals. Again, I love preaching about sleep because I don't do it. I suck. But, sleep is still...
Well, you got that Star Trek bag. Come on now.
Sleep is one of the most powerful things you could be doing to feel great and all this. Again, are you being an asshole with the gym? Are you overreaching, overtraining? Are you taking rest days? Are you following a smart program? Soft plug, Paragon training methods. Come get strong with us. And again, like you mentioned earlier, stress. Digestion is also a big one. I feel like we could do a totally different episode on that. But if your gut health and your digestion sucks, there's a good chance your thyroid levels probably also suck. I believe, to the best of my knowledge, still to this day, they're saying that we convert about 1/3 of our T4 to T3 in the gut. So if you're somebody that you're like, hi, I'm dealing with tons of gas and bloating and GI just distress, there's probably a good chance.
And a probiotic hasn't helped, or changing your diet hasn't helped. Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to throw in, because I always love answering this question, but there used to be so much recommendation about like, if you have thyroid issues, just go gluten-free, dairy-free. And that's actually a bunch of bullshit. Still, currently, as of the date of this podcast, If you go look around, if you go sift around in PubMed,
super mixed
it
in terms
is super
of
mixed opinions. And so again, if you have an issue with either of those foods, then yeah, totally. Like, don't keep putting something your body finds inflammatory into it. But double check yourself.
High dairy.
It's like, I can't believe we switched, bro. Literally, I had yogurt twice this week, and I was like, "Damn, Alex is gonna be pissed." I ain't doing anything with it though. I'm gonna keep staying on my dairy-free life. But it's kind of cool to know that after finally fixing all my sinus stuff, that's pretty rad. That it was actually just my sinuses and not me actually having an issue with dairy. I feel like we've been riffing for a while. So
well, I said one more question. Yep. One more question. So, okay, let's just say you don't have a thyroid issue, because I've actually seen that with some clients of mine. Like, they're like, "Oh, I think I have a thyroid issue." I'm like, "Okay, well, let's go get checked. Let's go run the numbers." And then they get all the data pulled. They get all the labs and everything is totally normal.
Bro,
what do we do then?
I feel like that could be a meme too, when you're like, I have this thing. I played Dr. Google. I have it. This is me. And then you get back your labs and you're just like, F you. I've played that game with myself a lot of times. And so I have a couple of different like suggestions here. And my first suggestion is double check your doctor. Even if you're like, yo, I love my doctor, we BFFs, double check your shit. Because I would say probably one out of every 5 times that I go to draw my labs, it's the one time that I'm like in a hurry. I'm usually running late with coffee because it's me. So be me rolling into this lab appointment already like 5 minutes on time, because I'm always 5 minutes, after I should be there. And it'd be like, I forget to check the lab work. And sure enough, that will be the one time that, they're going through their little computer, they click a thyroid, like maybe it's like pulling 3 or 4 things, but still not the right 3 or 4 things that you need. So my number one recommendation, double check your labs, because the likelihood that your doctor only pulled TSH or your doctor only pulled, it'll be like total uptake T4, blah, blah, blah. And you're like,
or like T3 ratio or something.
Right. And it's yo, like, this is trash. Like, this means this is not helpful data. So double check your doctor. Sometimes your doctor has bad days too. Sometimes the tech be in a hurry or selected the wrong one or whatever it is. But like, literally before they jab that needle in your arm, you are going to double check. You're going to chat with the person and be like, hey, just double checking. I need TSH, free T3, free T4, TPO, TGAB. Again, if you want to, how often you want to check antibodies, that's up to you. So maybe it's just TSH, free T3, free T4. But you are going to double check the person before they jab that needle. Ideally, do it before you walk back. But hey, sometimes you are late with coffee and that's okay. So double check before they pull those. Because I've had that. And thankfully, when I would like call back and I'd realize that I sucked and didn't double check them, thankfully, they would like still have the blood there and they're able to like pull the lab or something. But there was one time I was super saucy because I like had to go back and pull, like they like pulled TSH and free T4, but they didn't check the other one. So there has been a time or two where I had to go back. But just know everybody has bad days. And sometimes you do all the right things and something at the office happens. So A, double check yourself. B, my recommendation would be keep going. Again, like I said, it's like we do not operate in a vacuum. And so it only takes one thing to suck, right? Like we could have one hormone. Maybe all of our hormone levels look great, but we're not ovulating and we're not producing progesterone. Maybe you didn't pull labs on the right day. If you have a menstrual cycle, you can't just roll up in there on a Tuesday. Maybe your doctor sucked, or maybe, it's like I actually asked the lab tech the other day because I did like a bunch of hormone testing and I was like, hey, just out of curiosity, like, is there a certain day that we're supposed to pull like our sex hormones if we're a female? And she was like, yeah, I don't even know. And it was like, wow, imagine like that's what you do for a living. It's like jab people and take blood and like you don't even know. So again, just know if you have a menstrual cycle, there's specific days. I'm still going to refer you back to, I love following people like Dr. Laura Bryden. I love following people like Dr. Jolene Brighton. Both of them have big, extensive blogs. Both of them put out free educational content just like I do, but on Instagram, it's specific to women's health. So they're going to tell you, hey, these exact days of your cycle, this is when you need to go be testing. Because the reason for that is, with our menstrual cycle, there's often recommendations depending on what we're looking at. Sometimes you want to pull labs at the beginning. So like day 3 of your cycle, basically 3 days after you're like just started your period. For most instances, we're actually looking kind of like that 19 to 21 day of cycle because we're trying to see, did I produce progesterone? Did I ovulate? But that gets tricky because maybe you're somebody that you have a little bit longer cycle, you have a little bit longer period, or maybe
you're
you
on
have a shorter
hormonal
period,
birth control,
or you're on birth control, or this and that. Because again, if you're on birth control, there's no point in checking your hormones. Like you can check you can check your thyroid, you can check your free and total testosterone, but your hormones are overridden, and that's the point. So just again, it's like this is where we need to have an all-star doctor that's like, hey, you're going to go in on X date. This is what you're going to pull. But the other labs that you could be going in to investigate would be your LH, your FSH. We would want to look at your estrogen, your progesterone, free and total testosterone. A side note, I want to do a podcast on free and total. I actually know a really rad interview that we could do with somebody that like loves nerding out on that side of things. I actually know a couple of people and I want to bring them on as guests.
What, testosterone?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So double check your free and total testosterone, DHT, DHEA, especially if you're like dealing with a lot of like acne, cystic acne stuff. That's when you want to start checking all those androgens and look at your testosterone levels, your DHT, DHEA. A really big one is check your sex hormone binding globulin levels. This is huge because it's basically an asshole in your body. Sex hormone binding globulin, it basically abbreviates to SHBG. Think of it basically as if you were out at the club, you're trying to like pick up a hot girl, a hot guy. Sex hormone binding globulin is the literal cock block, vagina block. I don't know. Basically what it does is it is basically like this little Uber driver. It's driving around in your body. It's saying, fuck this person. I'm going to steal all their estrogens, or excuse me, I'm going to steal all their testosterones. I'm going to steal all of their thyroid hormones. So
you don't want to be too high though, because otherwise you start growing things some places.
Correct, for sure. But it's like, especially just know if you have ever taken hormonal birth control, your sex hormone binding globulin levels can actually still stay elevated, even if you break up with your IUD, you break up with your pill, ring, whatever it is, what have you. Your sex hormone binding globulin levels actually often go up if you're utilizing, hormonal birth control. So even if you go off it, it can oftentimes stay elevated. And that was the case for me. It's like, no matter what I do, that shit is still high. And I'm like, bro, I haven't taken the pill literally since I was 28, about to be 34. And we're still over here dealing with this little guy. But same thing, it's going to impact your thyroid levels. It's going to impact your testosterone levels. And so what that might just mean on the thyroid front is if that value is super high and you're working with your doctor, you can't get it down, then you just might have to take more thyroid hormone or something like that. Because again, you just need more in your body because you got this little guy just trying to go steal your wives, steal your girlfriends, your boys, your whatever.
It's Mr. Steal Your Girl.
I was hoping I planted that joke. I was like, pick up what I'm putting down. Other things, basic stuff. It's good to check like your CBC, your metabolic panels. Again, vitamin D. Check your like iron and anemia stuff is so common just because there's so many people that hate eating like red meat or just like everybody's on like the dry ass chicken life and nobody like living and loving the beef and steak and all that stuff. So check your iron, check your ferritin panels. I forget what the abbreviation stands for, but it's like your TIBC. That's a bit like basically like the big 3 if you're trying to check for iron stuff. And that's if you're dealing with like I'm feeling cold all the time, cold fingertips. I'm feeling like lightheaded or, just like low energy, weak. That's when you want to like check in on kind of all those things. And lastly, you want to check in your fasting blood glucose, your hemoglobin A1C. Actually, just like looked at, a friend asked me if I would like glance over her stuff and her A1C was like in the 4s. And I was like, dang, I feel like I never see that.
I don't think I've ever seen that low.
Yeah, that's low. But
that's super low. Yeah.
If I remember, I feel like her husband might be type 1 diabetic. So I'm sure they like kind of keep carbs lower. There was one other topic that I want to hit and I want to scroll and make sure we didn't.
Well, one thing too, I think you have a lot of resources, don't you? Do you have like all these tests markers that you should get? Because We need a cheat sheet.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe I can throw together a free download. That'd actually be a dope. Let's see if we can make that. Because I definitely have posts. I can go ahead and kind of list off some of my favorite resources. But again, I love Peer to Repair Manual by Laura Briden. I wish that every single it's like if you have a menstrual cycle, go get you some. It's such an insightful and such an empowering read, like truly. Same thing, Hormone Repair Manual is also by Dr. Laura Briden. And that would be basically your population of like 35 and beyond. So kind of perimenopause, menopause. That book is basically specific for that crowd. There's also Beyond the Pill by Dr. Jolene Brighton. Huge, big fan of Jolene. She's wonderful. Taking Charge of Your Fertility by Tony, I'm going to butcher this name, but it's Weschler. And then if you want to go, those are obviously more like women's health specific, but like I said, it's like we on the same bus. You don't get to just worry about one and not the other. Thyroid specific books, you could check out Adrenal Thyroid Revolution. That is Aviva Round. You could also do Hashimoto's thyroiditis, even if you're like, I don't have, Hashimoto's, but I do have thyroid stuff. Again, we're all talking about it. That would be Isabella Wentz. And then she's also put out Hashimoto's protocol. My disclaimer I always give with this, especially because the population that we are talking to is people that love being active. These books are written for like general population people. So like this is written for like my mom and dad that are like, hi, I don't really work out. I just like live and love life, right? Mm-hmm. Keep in mind that, these books might give recommendations that don't fit into the paradigm for you because you love working out, you love lifting, you love being active. So whenever you kind of get into any of the chapters that are like, intermittent fasting, go low carb. We ain't doing that, bestie. Like get like that's where you flip those pages really, really fast. So again, like kind of like I'll just say, if you find yourself trying to make some sort of big decision about like, I'm gonna cut carbs, I'm gonna go low carb. Get a coach. Come back to our Instagram, slide in our DMs. Like we would obviously love to advise on that. But I'm really hyped. I think that like it's been a while since we've like gone hard on like a super informational podcast. So I'm so energized right now. Like I don't even need ghost energy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, was there anything that you wanted to touch on about thyroid?
I think I would just leave with this is that again, hormone stuff is so slow to change. And so if you are in that position where you're just like, holy hell, I feel terrible. I did just get lab work. It validated how I feel. My labs say I'm a walking trash can right now. You got to be in it for the long haul. And you got to be prepared for a lot of days of showing up and doing the things you need to do. And maybe not necessarily seeing those fruits of your labor. Like it truly, if I circle back to like the 2017, 18, 19, even I would venture to say 2020, it's like, I feel like the tail end of 2020 is when things finally started to turn around for me. But it was just like, I just had such a colorful past of under eating, under recovering, doing the most. So just understand, it's like once you've kind of identified the habits or the things that maybe got you into the position you are in, it's gonna take a while. And like I said, just showing up on all the days. Like you got to sign up for the good days, the bad days, and all the days.
Yeah, no, I can't even count like how many people that I've had, that I've worked with that have had hypothyroidism, like Hashimoto's. Mostly women. So yeah, a good chunk of people have it, super common. But yeah, you got to work on the basic stuff. You got to be in a really good place to diet prior to, and because otherwise, like, it's going to be a struggle, and it still may be more challenging, but it will be more so if you do not have the good habits in place.
So the biggie there too, because again, it's like you could be running slightly hypothyroid, but not actually have like a true thyroid issue if you're just under eating. So like that's a natural mechanism from the body. It's like, hi, okay, I have this host.
Yeah, metabolic adaptation.
I have this host. I sound like I'm talking about like Westworld over here, but like I have this host. It's not giving me enough food. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on, but I ain't getting fed. And so your thyroid has to, again, figure it out. And so you see those levels decline over time. And so exactly as you said, it's the fancy term for that is called metabolic adaptation. But I think that's also incredibly empowering is knowing, hey, well, if levels are low, it actually might not be something that we do need medication for. And that gets back to this is why we fuck with and we mess with root cause, right? Because it's like, well, if our body is just sad because we're not eating enough food, we start eating more food, we start being more fed, and then suddenly thyroid levels go back to, where we hopefully see, well, sick, like we can ride off into the sunset and life just became incredibly easy, right? But it's being able to differentiate, well, hey, am I hypothyroid because I'm under eating? Or am I actually like truly hyperthyroid, hypothyroid, excuse me, because, XYZ and I might need a prescription and meds to help me. That's super duper huge. So I realized I was like looking through the doc real quickly. We did not chat about people like how you might end up having, like who is more inclined to have thyroid issues. So I think that's an important
we touched on a little bit, but I mean, there's definitely genetic factors, right? And
so we can jam on that real quick, but basically it's like you might be struggling with thyroid issues. This was actually a perfect opener because again, it's like, are we under eating? Are we just the I'm not fed enough crew? But if somebody in your family, if it's a genetic thing, you can see that. So again, if your mom, immediate family, anything like that, we could just have nutrient deficiencies from a not so great diet. So kind of back to we were talking about eating lots of processed foods. We're not getting tons of fruits and veggies, not getting tons of protein. It's like different things that factor into your thyroid can be vitamin A, vitamin D, B vitamins, magnesium, zinc, iodine, selenium, copper, like all the things. Like I'm still not hitting all of them, but there's a lot of things. And so that's also what can happen is if we're dieting chronically, well, then we're eating less food. So we're getting less nutrients from our food. And so like, that's where that spiral can also happen. Like the chronic under eating thing is such a big factor in all of this. Again, we kind of touched on if somebody is having a lot of gut health issues, if we're having really, really poor digestion, we're probably inclined to see some not so great thyroid levels. If we are somebody that we are afraid of eating healthy fats. And again, it's like I just made, I think it was actually, just a few days ago, I did a post that it was like hormones, handshake emoji, and, healthy fats. But truly, it's like your body needs cholesterol. It needs healthy fats to make the hormones. So the same thing. It's like, well, if your sex hormones are not so great, well, guess what? Your thyroid is also probably not so great. So one of the easiest things you can do is, are we eating, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record and I don't care. Are we eating sources of healthy fats regularly in terms of avocado, salmon, whole eggs, olive oil? Are we getting nuts and seeds, high quality meats and stuff like that are a little bit on the fattier side? Like get you some, get up in there. Other than that, there's obviously this list could be endless, but the other two would be, it can be actually super common to see thyroid stuff during pregnancy or immediately kind of postpartum. So again, like usually in that case, you are running labs. I feel like that's pretty standard to be running a lot of labs if you are pregnant or if we're postpartum, but definitely something to keep an eye on for sure. And then lastly, I would just say if you're somebody that you already have other autoimmune issues, feel likely it's, again, you got one autoimmune issue, like they come in pairs. They coupling up.
Yeah, I've seen couples like people with celiac or RA, like rheumatoid arthritis, like super common to have both of those together.
when in doubt, check it out, y'all. That's the sauce. This was such a good podcast. So I'm like, I could like go run right now. Granted, like obviously that would not go well.
You would probably die.
I'm like over here like scooting around my chair. Like,
you need to go rest yourself.
Yeah.
Actually, curious question. Actually, with all this stuff, blood clot stuff going on, what has your thyroid been like? Health been wide like that? Like, yeah.
This is actually a really important little snippet. And I am so grateful that, again, I'm able to be super aware of this. But when I first went on blood thinners, it was probably about 2 weeks after I started on blood thinners. Specifically, I was on Eliquis, but this could certainly happen on any blood thinner. I actually tipped super hyperthyroid. So blood thinner made basically my thyroid meds even more potent. And so I would like, and I knew it because it'd be like, bro, why am I like hot? I was like I said, just like anxious, jittery. I'd be like waking, like we have a performance sleep and I'd be like waking up covered in sweat and I'd be like, what is happening? I'd be like, the specific symptom that like made me go, oh, you need to go check is I would be laying in bed and my heart would just be like, bah, 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 bah. You're just like racing heartbeat. And so sure enough, it was like, I think probably about 3.5 weeks after being on blood thinners, I went and drew labs. And sure enough, it was like free T3, which again, it's awesome because it's like my stuff's so dialed in that all we had to do was, I actually haven't been taking the Cytomel, which is, again, basically the synthetic T3. So sure enough, it's like we dropped that and then got right. It's like I said, I like to stay like 3.5 on my free T3. And we were able to, so thankful because again, it's like if I didn't have everything dialed in, that might be a little harder exchange. But like whenever you go on any new prescription, or again, I think especially if you're taking hormonal birth control, it's why I love talking about hormonal birth control stuff for so long. If you go in PubMed, there are actually things I actually looked before the podcast, but talking about, hey, if you're on hormonal birth control for an extended period of time, so let's say 5, 6, 7, 10 years. Like for me, I was on it from the time I was 16 until 28.
A lot of women are on it since they get their first menstrual cycle.
Well, and then after they have a baby and they're like, yo, we ain't doing this right now, right? If we are on hormonal birth control for extended periods of time, we actually do have some research and we actually do have some studies that say, hey, like your risk of being hypothyroid does go up. And we know from various people over the years talking about this in the space, such as Laura Brighton, such as Jolene Brighton, talking about, hey, when we take hormonal birth control, we can have changes to our gut health. We can have these nutrient deficiencies that we get stripped of, which is why, hey, if you're taking hormonal birth control, consider supplementing XYZ. Hey, do monitor your digestion, do monitor your gut health. There's so many things there where it's like, if you are on hormonal birth control and you are taking thyroid meds, understand you might need more thyroid meds because again, you're trying to counteract, it's like you've got this little leech that is trying to take all your shit, right? You might have to be on a higher dose than somebody that isn't on hormonal birth control or something like that. So just, closely work with your doctor. Obviously, if you don't want babies, you don't want babies. Great. Our goal is how do we optimize whatever it is that we're doing? And so I would just say, if you are in the camp of, hey, I just got, diagnosed as hypothyroid and hey, I'm currently taking the pill. I have, again, like a NuvaRing, I have IUD, whatever it is, whatever hormonal birth control, I would highly suggest doing a lot of research, doing a lot of Googling so that you can have really good conversations with your doctor. Because again, it might just be, hey, for me to do both of these and for me to take both of these prescriptions, well, hey, I just might need to supplement a little more. I might need to be on my A game in terms of my diet and stuff like that so that we can just feel good, do the thing, and get out. So TLDR there would be if you are taking hormonal birth control, just do your research. And again, it's going to impact it could impact your thyroid levels. So know and understand that, and then work closely with your doctor, again, to make the medley of those two work.
I think we got to appreciate everybody for listening.
Yeah, dude. I'm hyped for this. So we are gonna make sure we've kind of been spitballing some dope guests for the future. So we're super excited. But also, I just want to put out, if anybody's still listening, if there's a specific topic that you would love to see us cover, we'd love to hear about it. So somebody literally,
please.
slide in our DMs. Slide in on like the Live Big, Lift Big podcast Instagram comments. Let us know. Because I had somebody specifically that they were like, hey, I just joined Paragon Training Methods. I'm super stoked, but I'm vegetarian. Do you happen to have any resources of like how to optimize my diet and how, I've invested in the fitness side of stuff, but like I'm feeling a little lost on the nutrition side. So same thing, I was like, oh, that would be such a dope topic to interview somebody on. Obviously, Alex and I love meat in our mouth, but we want to find a really dope person for that. I hope your mom never listens to this podcast. Della, I love you. But truly, if there's a topic that you would love to see us riff on, we would love to make it happen. So slide in our DMs, hop on the Live Big, Lift Big podcast comments, let us know. But that is all we got for today. We will catch you later.
Adios.